Okay, so you know how we have a theme for Wednesdays of doing the live marketing and copywriting, looking at people's websites and stuff.
Yep.
And we have the theme for Thursdays, which is tools. I
Right.
don't
Tools,
think we have a theme for Mondays yet, not that I know of.
which is
But I can
coffee.
tell you that this is our 28th,
Could be.
John, by the way, 28th of these videos.
Wow.
It's crazy to think about. And we do kind of have a theme on Mondays, which is to say it's usually a marketing from the real world lessons kind of theme, along with, unless you're able to restrain me, a rant of some kind.
Hmm.
Another,
Everybody
it's
loves
the
the rant.
Dean Way
I have
rant way.
opinions. I've thought through stuff and I have opinions, and they're usually counterintuitive.
Mm.
So
Nice.
I started this morning a new 2-week cohort based class. I mean, I'm a participant, it's not my
Yeah.
course. And this is kind of like a high end one. It's getting a lot of buzz. I'm not going to say its name, but it's getting a lot of buzz and stuff. This whole company and what they're doing is getting a lot of buzz.
Mhm.
And I did one of their sprints before about viral marketing, and I didn't think it was like awesome. I did end up being one of the featured projects in it, but I didn't think it was awesome. But I think it was also their first time doing it, and maybe they'll get better. And now I think they're also, this is the first time I should stop taking the ones where it's the first time that this company does them.
Probably.
But one about storytelling. And what you'll find, and we all hear these tropes and this, like, you know, trivial way of talking about story, and how everyone is hardwired for stories and blah blah blah, and it's so superficial that I want to slap the words out of someone's mouth whenever they're saying it to me in
I
front of, like,
so
it's
I've been
physically saying
indoctrinated.
it to me.
I've been indoctrinated in that idea.
Yeah. So here's my problem with that concept. I leave most of it aside because, whatever. And most people who work in marketing work in B2C marketing.
Mhm.
And to go back to our definition, B2C marketing is simply marketing where that one person you're talking to can make a purchase decision without floating it with anyone else. There's no legal or procurement department. There's no steering committee or manager or whatever. And then B2B is you can't make the decision, or your audience member can't make a decision by themselves. They have to have at least one other group or team or person to sign off on it. That's a
Mhm.
B2B. And it's a
Mhm.
different kind of approach. Uh, the problem I have with learning story structure over and over and over, because I keep looking for, the perfect one instead of the ones that I've made and had to make, and I don't think mine are fantastic, but they are, at least they exist, is that nobody does B2B. They'll pay lip service to B2B, but
Mhm.
everything that they're telling you is for B2C. And they'll do one of two things when you try to figure out how to bridge the difference. Okay, this is all great for B2C and Instagram stories, or ads for Pepsi or whatever, but like in a complex like B2B sale, and you're in marketing, every company that makes something in B2B has a marketing group somewhere. uh, how does it work there? Because it's a different setup. And they say, well, it's not a different setup because people are people. And we've given examples from people in the business world for story. But you go and you look through every word and second of video in the example, and there's nothing there about any kind of story structure that would work for B2B, other than they just try to take the hero's journey. And everyone at this point knows the hero's journey, right? But if you've seen Star Wars, you've seen the hero's journey. If you've read Joseph Campbell or learned about the monomyth or whatever, it's all hero's journey, blah, blah, blah. Call to perform, called with a greater purpose to go do something. There's a guide, there's a villain, doesn't want to do it, resists the change, accepts the change, dark night of the soul, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's happy. And it's bullshit. I'm not even sure I can say bullshit on LinkedIn,
We
but
may have to bleep you, or your
it's,
reach may go
yes.
down. I don't know.
And it's because in B2B, you don't have the one critical element at the beginning that you absolutely have to have for the hero's journey to work with an audience. When you go in to watch the next Spider-Man movie, or really any movie or TV show or whatever, at no point, knowing that it's a drama or a comedy or knowing it's fictional, at no point do you flop down into your chair and you've got your popcorn and you've got your drink and you say to yourself, well, I'll tell you one thing about this movie I'm about to see. It better be 100% real and verifiable. There better be a Captain America. There better be an Iron Man and a Thor. Right? At no point do you say that, because you understand when you're in the audience, part of the contract you have with that medium, that experience, is willing suspension of disbelief. You can't have hero's journey without willing suspension of disbelief, because no story is what really happened. It's all an interpretation. Even stories about real life events are interpretations. So there has to be some give and take. There has to be some willing suspension of disbelief. But in B2B, everyone knows that it's their obligation to, if they're going to listen to a vendor's or salesperson's or marketing team's, story or communications, they have an obligation to wear this sort of helmet of skepticism. Right? They owe it to their shareholders, they owe it to their coworkers, they owe it to their own career prospects, and whether or not they're going to get fired if they vouch for a company that turns out to not actually be able to do what they promised and cost 4 times as much before you figure that out. So everyone in B2B enters with a helmet of skepticism. There is no willing suspension of disbelief. And so the hero's journey breaks immediately. Anyone want to give me their opinion on what I just said? Is it true? You think it's wrong? Go for it. I don't even know if...
I mean,
And that
the helmet of skepticism.
Everyone in B2B knows that they're supposed to disbelieve, or at least
Right.
not baldly
The
accept
salesperson.
what marketing or sales tells you.
Right.
What another company's marketing or sales. And because there's no willing suspension of disbelief when they sit down in the chair in that little conference room, you can't use hero's journey with the same way that you could use it for B2C.
Yeah, I buy that. I can see that.
I want to show something to, we go back to our familiar pyramid or 3-layer structure, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about all marketing, whether it's B2C or B2B. The vast majority of all marketing is simply some company saying, or some small business saying, this exists, right? Or this is the get the word out phase of marketing. And the thing is,
right,
the pyramid doesn't do it justice, because this should reach almost up to the top. Almost the entire thing should be this exists, because virtually all of marketing and all the money spent on marketing and time and people devoted to it is just around this exists. Trying to tell as many people as possible. Sometimes you tell yourself you're trying to tell the right people, but in that case, you're trying to tell as many of the right people as possible that your company, your product, your service exists, and to just sort of get it into their consciousness somehow. This is what virtually everyone in marketing, they think that this is marketing. They think marketing's job is to say this exists, and this is as far as they go. One up from that is this is what we both believe. So if you remember back to earlier conversations we've had, the lower level here is informational, and then up from here is inspirational. Like, let's lift ourselves above this and look towards something else. And then the third one is just, and it takes up even a lot less space than this is what you want to do. And everyone thinks that, okay, this is 99% of all marketing. This exists. I'm not even sure if you guys can see my cursor. You probably can't. So here I am pointing at stuff. You can't even see it. But this is what everyone tries to do, and then jump straight to this is what you want to do. Without skipping the step, this is what we both believe. Like, this is why we're the same. This is why people like you believe stuff like this. Before people like us do stuff like this.
Well, this is what we believe is like, hey, these are our shared values.
Believe. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But you have to establish that first before establish your beliefs or your shared beliefs or some sort of a rapport building tribal connection before you get up there.
At least a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's very hard to do this. It's much easier to do this in B2C, partly because you can just achieve it at scale. And at B2C, you have access as a copywriter, as a marketing person, right? You have access to a lot of stuff that in B2C that you simply don't have in B2B. You have access to scarcity. You have access to a lot of emotions that you wouldn't use in
Right.
B2B. You would
In
never
B2B.
use anger in B2B. You would never use very much sentimentality in B2B. You just can't. It's inappropriate. People are turned off
But
by it because of
but
the
isn't that changing though? Because I see
see.
businesses becoming more personal in
I do
terms of
see
trying
that.
to reach to people even within that B2B area. Now, maybe
Yeah.
not to the extent in B2C.
Right.
The other thing I see a lot of, and I said this has really kind of changed a lot because you got me thinking on this one here, Dean. But the other
Success.
thing that's changed a lot with this over the last, I don't know, 5, 6 years is now we've got things like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and Tesla has done this to a certain extent. They've taken
Right.
and moved the this exists even further, where people are buying it because they know it exists
Before it exists.
Yes.
before it
All
exists.
B2C examples you just gave me.
Yeah,
All B2C.
yeah, all B2C. Yeah, that is B2C. B2B. Um, but I do kind of agree with Dr. V on that one. I think it's changed a little bit,
It
and
has
that
changed a little bit.
businesses are trying to become much more personal, much
And
more
I'm thinking of
interactive.
the VC, the venture capital presentations, where your job is really to get them to like you. Now, are you calling that a B2C because the
That is
consumer
a
is the
B2C,
investor?
yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I
So
gotcha.
like I've done pitch decks
Mm.
for companies, like created
Yeah,
them
yeah,
and helped them create their narration and stuff. Those are
yeah.
clear. Those are all B2C. And here's the thing.
Okay.
It's even if it's you presenting to a room of
Hmm.
5 people, usually it's no more than 5 people, it's usually just
Right.
3
Yeah, right.
in a VC room, right? In a little conference room. For the most part, you're trying to convince 3 individuals. Because if even one of them is interested and is willing to champion you, then you probably have, at least some funding coming your way.
Right.
So that's not B2B. Like those guys might confer among each other, but
Right.
there's no one outside of their tiny little group
Yeah.
that determines whether or not they're willing to take the first step. They decide if they're going to take the first step, which is the same
Right.
Yeah.
as making a purchase decision.
So it's very interesting. So they are the decision makers. They are consumers of your investment pitch.
Right.
Interesting.
They're individual consumers. They do not
Right.
look. In fact, it's not even. It's frowned upon if they can't make their own decision to go forward individually,
Hmm.
and would only ever. You get a VC, someone in a VC team, and they only ever do what the team wants to do, and never make an argument for what. It's like that person doesn't exist long in that world. They shouldn't.
Right. Right.
You're
Yeah,
looking
right.
for independent thinkers. Any group
Right.
of independent thinkers is by definition a B2C pitch
Hmm.
or
Very
marketing.
interesting. But see, but doesn't that
Very
prove the
interesting.
point that B2B? I just have this feeling that people buy from people, regardless if you're in the B2B or B2C space. Like you have to have some of that, know, like, and trust thing going on there from the business to the next. But I think that what you're
I'm
looking
not
at
sure people
perhaps is
do buy from people. Like for
oh,
instance, if I
really?
use Instacart to have groceries picked up at Aldi and brought here, I haven't bought anything from people.
Yeah, but the people or person who delivers, there is a tip potentially involved in there. So
Maybe
there is some
if I
people
even open
business.
the door.
Well, you're so antisocial. So
Yeah, there,
well,
there's merit in what you just said.
There is a lot of
So,
merit to what you said.
but
I
just
do
to be
understand.
clear, like you're answering 2 different fundamental kind of fear questions: B2C
Yes.
versus B2B, right? In B2C, the fundamental question, it doesn't guarantee you the sale, but you guarantees you won't make the sale unless you clear it, is how do I know I won't regret purchasing this? And that's
the
made at an
guarantees or
individual
something.
level, right? If I spent $5,000 on a used boat, not much of a boat, but $5,000 on a used boat. I've never had
It's
a
a
boat
dinghy.
before. I don't have
It's
any
a
place to
dinghy.
put a boat. The only
Yeah,
person who's ever going to find out about that and make me feel bad about it would be my spouse, probably.
exactly.
Whereas in B2B, it's how do I know it's safe for me to vouch for you in here at my company? Because if I champion you guys and a company, a vendor, and they say that our software or our product does 1, 2, and 3, and it turns out it only does 1, and even that it only does halfway, and they said it'd be stood up and ready and deployed, operational in 9 months, and here we are at the end of the second year, and we're still having trouble. It's not even good enough for us to technically go live with it. Then I haven't lost. It wasn't my money that bought your product. It was my company's money, but I could lose my job because I vouch for you guys, and I didn't do my due diligence. I wasn't skeptical enough in the beginning. And so even though it wasn't my money that purchased it, I've lost my 60, 70, 100, $150,000 job. So the stakes are way
Well,
higher for a corporate employee to vouch for an
there,
external vendor than it is for an individual to just be embarrassed in front of their spouse.
but then you look at the potential though for individuals in the business to be more of an intrapreneur, to have more of a little more risk taking and that sort of thing. But the other thing is occurred to me just a little while ago is, if you're marketing to certain people who then have to go to others, it's
Yeah.
as if you are actually taking your marketing message, your belief system and everything, and proselytizing or converting these people so they move forth to convey your marketing message to the powers that be. Yes or no?
I would say it's a
Maybe.
different flavor of that.
All right.
You might have to have a different marketing or at least a different sales message for
Mm-hmm.
each stakeholder or group, with an understanding that
Okay.
those kind of decisions happen. And I'm talking about, it might take 18 months to close a sale and it's worth
Right.
millions of dollars, right? That the phrase I learned when I did a project for a government agency in Georgia was, you want to get as many fingerprints on the gun as possible. That's
I
how they
love that.
phrased it.
That's
That was their
great.
term, but I've never forgotten it. But yeah, we're not going to go ahead with this, Dean, until, or rather, like there's always one or two people who are sort of like they're the people that want to push things through and try to affect change in their organization. But they'll come right out
Right.
and say, like, yeah, I don't have enough fingerprints on the gun yet.
Well, so for example, let's say that the CEO says yes, the CMO says yes, and the CTO says no. So in that situation, you're going to have to, I guess the two other C-suite people are going to try and convince the third, almost like you did in the VC type of situation. So, I
Maybe,
mean,
or
to me,
maybe
it's a
the
little muddy.
CEO goes ahead and makes the decision, because ultimately it's the CEO's responsibility.
True.
Mhm. Ultimately, yeah,
Ultimate.
yeah. You can
But
have
does
them
but
disagree.
On the other
does the
hand, if the
CEO
CTO
listen
is
to everybody?
responsible for making it successful, that CTO is looking at two paths and is
Yeah.
keeping an eye on both. One,
Okay.
let's do everything I can to make this successful. And two, I need to look for another job,
Right.
because this guy's willing to override me, despite the fact that I'm the one and my organization that's doing all
Yeah.
the technical research on this and knows if it's going to be an easy way forward.
Yeah.
Right, or not, as the case may be.
Yeah. But anything below the CEO, and even the CEO has to go to the board, right? For
Yeah.
anything
Mhm.
that's really big.
Mhm.
But yeah, you're looking for, how do I know it's safe for me to vouch for you in here? How do I know it's safe for you to let your company come closer to me and my company?
Right.
I'm just thinking the CMO is probably all enthusiastic, like, this is great. We're going to be able to sell and do all kinds of things with this thing.
Yeah, the
And
CMO,
I've seen this in real life,
yeah,
well, more than once. So yes,
or the head of sales.
or the
Mhm.
head of
If
sales.
it's
Mhm.
not
Yeah,
hitting his
usually
budget
the
or
head
her
of sales
budget,
and head of marketing
totally
are
willing to have
one
you spend
team.
money on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually the head of sales and marketing are one team, and then you
Yeah.
get the CTO on the other side, and then the CEO is just kind of going, "All right, I'm gonna either be the tying vote or," but at the end of the day, I make the ultimate decision. It's
And then
yeah, quite a
whichever one has in the parking lot a GTO, they're going to move forward fastest of all.
Had to
Never
put
mind.
that in
That
there,
was just
didn't you?
very obscure,
yeah,
but I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So
yeah.
at this point, you've both made car references to a
Yes, we
GTO and
were
to
into the
Tesla.
cars.
Monday's
Car
car
reference.
day. So, I
Monday
mean,
is
really
muscle
sort of
car day.
two themes around this one, right?
Yeah.
Which is,
Yeah,
hero's journey might be fine, but you can't just learn it and then apply it to B2B. It will fail spectacularly and
yeah.
early. And then you're stuck wondering what the hell happened to you. And
That's a good
secondly,
point.
virtually everyone who does any kind of marketing or even works in marketing thinks that this exists is the whole pie. And it's not the whole pie.
Mm,
It's not even crust.
It's barely crust. It is
possibly
kind
not.
of
No
crust.
no
It's
filling.
just crust, no filling.
Just breast, no filling.
And
Cars
certainly
and
not whipped cream.
pies.
It's not whipped cream or ice cream on the top.
Monday is cars,
But
pies, and topping day.
there you go. If this exists, or we exist, or getting the word out is virtually all of marketing. It's always been virtually all of marketing, and it might always be virtually all of marketing. But
Yeah.
it's where everyone lives, and you don't eat well if you go where everyone else is trying to eat the same thing.
Might be a food shortage.
So you need to move up. So from informational to inspirational at the least, and then if you can get there, transformational.
I love the T word.
All right, that's about it for
Transformation.
me and my rant. Thank you. And
That's
thanks for
cool.
pushing
You're
back.
welcome.
There are good points there.
Push,
You
push,
know,
push.
we try.
That's why we're here, to provide resistance.
Yeah, yeah.
That's right. Just remember though,
Resist, because
resistance is
we believe that
futile.
resistance is not futile.
Right.
Not futile? Okay. Just
I
checking.
heard someone mention it was a customer meeting actually. I heard someone mention this was maybe November, December. It was just sort of like tossed off an idea or comment, but it's that if you're operating in a silo, you think all your ideas are great.
Oh yeah,
So,
without a doubt.
Or in a
and
They
vacuum,
may be
they
corny.
absolutely need to be pushed back on because most of them are junk.
as the case may
Oh.
be.
They may be full of corn in that silo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
I guess that's about it for me.
That's good.
You guys got
Lively
anything
Monday.
else?
Not really. It's just I think I want to stick to B2C.
No,
Yeah, I don't blame you.
got me thinking.
Yeah.
I've been in the B2B world. It's like
Yeah.
still a lot of fun.
B2B is not where it's not that the people who operate in B2B aren't creative and interesting. It's that they, if they think marketing is marketing, and they get into a B2B scenario,
Mhm.
they find that it's very constraining for what
It
they
is-
can say
it
and
is
what
very
they can
constraining.
do. And it's not like working for a small creative agency to
Mhm.
sell shampoo to somebody.
Yeah, I will say that my experience in B2B stuff is a little more limited, but B2B with me being the consultant and the CEO being the entrepreneur, those are very easy because it's almost like it's a B2C type relationship, like
Yeah.
you're talking about
It
earlier,
is.
where I can say, "Hey, I can do this for 59K. What do you want?" And he comes back
Right.
and says, "Well, I'll take 20 of the 59K worth of services." But in that B2B situation, it's extraordinarily personal. So. Make me thinking.
Mhm.
All
Makes
right.
me think.
Indeed.
All right. Thanks, everyone. See you tomorrow.